Greetings, Barkish Wursipelis here, and even after hearing me say that, you are probably still pronouncing it wrong. Welcome to my video series about the Magyar Heritage Festival in Florida, featuring folk music as you've just seen, folk instruments, folk clothing, different tools used in different parts of Magyar culture, archery shows, punk rock bands, pop bands, and pretty much anything you could imagine. And that, of course, includes traditional foods. So I'll be starting this video series with traditional foods because everybody has a stomach, so that's the easiest thing to share. Of course, I'm going to start this video by showing you gulyás, the number one thing people think of when they think Magyar cuisine. Gulyás, not pronounced goulash, is a beef stew, and that's usually it. These various other forms of goulash that you get in different parts of America, like chili without beans, or just macaroni and chili, or stewed corn and tomato and lima beans, none of that is gulyás. Gulyás is, at its heart, a beef stew soup. A very good one, but a beef stew. If you get anything different from that, it's probably not gulyás, at least anything that a Magyar would recognize. That's not to say there are not different kinds of gulyás. My grandfather used to make széke gulyás at every New Year's. Széke gulyás literally means Transylvanian goulash, and that was a pork and sauerkraut soup, and I try to make that myself every New Year. This next plate is from the main line. This is the main entrees served at the festival. There's a couple things here, so I'll go into all of them. The first is porkult. There's two kinds here. One is marha porkult, which is stewed beef. The other is sertés porkult, which is stewed pork. And both of these are served on top of testa. They also offered krumpli, which is potatoes. Delicious. Nothing much to say beyond that, though. The other part here underneath the sour cream is tutut kapusta, which means stuffed cabbage. And this is a recipe that is loved by every Magyar, at least that I've ever met. So this is a cabbage leaf boiled until it's soft and malleable, and inside is ground pork and rice rolled up in the leaf and then simmered again, usually in a tomato-based, but sometimes it's dill-based. The dill-based tutut kapusta is pretty delicious itself. And you top it off with some sour cream. You've got a wonderful meal. As you might notice, there's not many vegetables here except for that leaf of cabbage. Vegetables have a tendency to show up in salads or in desserts, such as cabbage strudel. Next up, we have a plate of sausages, because you simply cannot have a meal from Eastern Europe or Central Europe that doesn't contain sausages. So here we've got two different kinds. I'll start with the red one first. It's the most common, or most normal to outsiders. This is called kolbas, which means smoked pork sausage. Might sound really similar to the Polish kielbasa. It has very similar meaning, similar etymology. And there's not much to say beyond that, except the Magyar one is going to be spiced with paprika, which is why it's so red. The darker sausage is a horka. Horka is a pork and rice sausage that usually contains organ meat. This one in particular is a majas horka, which means liver. So this is pork liver, pork, and rice. This sounds disgusting, and when I was a little kid, I thought it was, but as an adult, I love it. Goes great with bread, especially. And one that's not shown here that wasn't available is véres horka, which is pork and rice again, but this time pork blood as the organ meat. And that's quite delectable as well. This next plate is langos. and you simply cannot have a Magyar festival without langos available. Langos is deep fried bread, a common summertime treat, often enjoyed poolside. And this particular langos is covered in sajtos tefelus, which means cheese and sour cream. Now, you might think that's a little weird to have deep fried bread covered in cheese and sour cream and garlic and other spices as during the middle of summer poolside, but think about in America we would usually have like an ice cream cone, and but just think about the nutrients in that. The original waffle cone of an ice cream cone was a literal waffle, and then you've got this dairy on top of it. So the nutrient content is actually the same. And I can tell you from personal experience on a hot day, deep fried bread covered in cheese and sour cream that's colder than the air temperature, good, it really hits the spot. But that's not the only kind of langos there is. Uh, the Magyar Angol Református Egyház church in Cleveland, Ohio that I grew up in would also serve langos winter around Harvest Festival and in October and in the middle of winter during Christmas time. And they would cover it in powdered sugar instead and serve it as desserts. So you can have it like that as well, and when you do, it's actually a lot like funnel cake you might get at American Carnival. And finally, a few entries that I don't have images of, but they definitely deserve mention. So the first one is pogacha, which is a type of biscuit. Now you can get these with either bacon cracklings or cheese baked into them. These are wonderful, greasy biscuits, just like langos. They hit the spot on a hot day or a cold one. Another one that was available at the festival, but I don't have shown, is a palacinta. Palacinta is a very thin pancake, which is usually served as a dessert with fruit filling or ground chestnuts or maybe candied cottage cheese. It's very similar to French crepes or Polish naleśniki. Your candied stuffing, whether it's candied fruit or candied cheese, and you just wrap it up in this thin pancake, just like a crepe. And finally, another dessert that is typical of Magyar is called tudorudi, curdled cheese bar. That's literally what that means. It is a bar of cottage cheese that's sweetened, just like you would cream cheese to make a cheesecake, but it's coated in chocolate. So you eat it like a candy bar that just happens to have this dried cottage cheese in it. And it is quite delectable. I know that probably sounds weird, but I've made cheesecakes out of cottage cheese here in America. People have a tendency to like them. This stuff really works.